So, top 3 drivers for you this weekend?
Hamilton probably gets top for
Hamilton
me.
gets top, okay.
Yeah. And then Verstappen, Norris.
Nice, yeah.
Who got driver of the day? Norris?
I
think the official driver of the day was Lando.
Yeah, the official one was Lando, but because it was 39 Lando, 13 for Lewis and Max.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a toss-up between Max and Lewis, personally.
Yeah.
Because Lewis pulled something out of the bag and did great. It's harsh on Lando because Lando's had a very good weekend.
Yeah, but it's like you were saying earlier, he makes it a recovery drive, so it looks better if you just maybe don't go so aggressive into turn one.
Those 2 seconds that he needs are found in a pit stop and an overtake,
yes.
And that costs him. And those things, much like George Russell, will become less and less the more he drives. But I think that's the big takeaway. Biggest winners from the weekend?
Mercedes or Alpine.
Yeah.
Just because Alpine just really needed something that's just going to shut everyone up. Just there's so much going on. Just please have a clean race, double points, no arguments, nothing off field. Obviously they've got all the off-field stuff as well there.
Yeah, incredible.
The conspiracy theories are coming back with McLaren's fire on the same weekend that he comes back.
So the other thing, and it's going to be a recurring question. I'm going to ask this every week. Where is Sergio Perez?
Sergio Perez is in his happy place.
What a way to award a new 2-year contract by qualifying 18th and technically 11th and a DNF and an 8th place finish.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that they would have wanted at Red Bull is that when they announced the contract and everyone's sort of crying about how Ricciardo didn't get it or Tsunoda didn't get it or Lawson didn't get it, just keep it clean, get a couple of podiums and just everyone sort of quietens down. But for me, it's the wrong decision to keep him.
Yes.
But I fully understand the finances.
It's a safe decision.
I think Tsunoda's been shot in the foot by the Honda exit.
Yep.
I think Ricciardo hasn't impressed as much, and nothing is going Lawson's way at all. I don't think they ever wanted to do the jump from out of F1 to Red Bull, and then the V-carb door they closed on him.
Lawson, it might be a case of he has to go looking elsewhere. Much like Drugovich needs to go look elsewhere, because these drivers are sitting on the sidelines. Some of the best drivers that have either performed in IndyCar or various other formulas, and then there's no drive for them.
I think the Tsunoda seat has to open up, and whether that's Alpine or won't be Aston Martin now, but I mean,
Lawrence Stroll would have to actually kick his son out of a seat, or take the seat for himself. But I mean,
or leave and buy someone else.
Yeah. So the Drivers' Championship now, we've got Max Verstappen on 219 points. We've got Lando on 150, so he takes second place by a whole 2 points from Charles Leclerc. Like I say, that's kind of making a second-third battle, and with Max being 60 odd points ahead now, 69-point lead. Is that unassailable with this many Grand Prix to go, or is it a case of the battle is on now?
The battle is on, but the thing that concerns me as sort of someone that would obviously be back in Norris as the underdog is Red Bull are so reliable. When was the last time he had a mechanical failure that actually forced him to retire from a race?
Just Australia. Just Max's brakes.
Yeah.
It's
so rare.
So rare.
So rare. So you're looking at those 69 points and being like, he's not going to drop 25 from having to retire from a race because he doesn't crash into walls anymore. He's more mature.
Yeah.
He's also not going to retire. So you're going to have to take 25 points off him in 11 races on track. Yeah, which essentially means Norris needs to win.
Well, you essentially
6 or 7.
You need to be fastest driver and fastest lap.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to find those 7 points from somewhere. Well, 8 points, in fact. And those 8 points every single race is going to be a big ask.
Yeah, and especially when he's so good in qualifying as well. Like Verstappen setting his banker lap at the start of Q3, and it's good enough.
Yeah, exactly that.
At least 4th.
So crucially, the number 2 driver from last year is now 5th. Sergio Perez only has 111 points. Is that good enough?
No, nowhere near, because we're hitting a point where, obviously, not this weekend, it's not a great example, but Norris and Piastri are
double banking points.
Always double banking points. Mercedes are doing it at the minute as well. We don't know what happens with that seat next year, whether there'll be a bigger gap, but all the teams seem to be double banking points. And then you've got sort of 1st and 8th, 1st and 11th, 1st and 5th. And it's not sustainable, especially Constructors' Championship. I know that everyone looks at the drivers as the prestige championship, but money-wise, you want to win Constructors.
Well, before we look at the Constructors, crucially, Oliver Biermann has more points, and I'll put this in, he has more points combined than Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon, Kevin Magnussen, Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, Logan Sargent. He has more points than those 6 drivers.
Yeah, and that's where you need that quote back
one race.
from earlier in the pod where you were saying the only sport you have so much talent that isn't in the sport.
So he'll be in a Haas next year.
Yeah.
He did great this weekend. Much like Jack Doohan last week. I don't think he showed full pace, but he did great this weekend. Another 19 laps for Ollie Biermann. The Constructors, Red Bull 330, Ferrari 270, McLaren creeping up 237, and then there's a jump down to Mercedes 151. Can we get a 3-course race out of this?
Yeah, I mean, especially with Perez.
You gotta love it.
We need a
because
word.
Red Bull have one driver.
Yeah, we need a word for like doing a Perez, like Perezing. We need something. When Perez is being Perez, you've always got a chance with the other teams. I mean, I'm not even looking at it like he's in poor form and he's going to come back. I'm like, this is Sergio now.
I hate to think that this is Sergio, and to think that you're going to win the championship with Verstappen. And granted, and I made a big thing about this last year, Verstappen could have won the drivers and the constructors on his own last year. He's not going to be able to do that this year.
He needs help, and if you're going to sit and call him, what is it, the Minister of Defence, the ultimate wingman, you need him.
He needs to be that vanguard action that we saw in 2021.
Yeah,
like if he doesn't hold up Hamilton in those crucial points, especially in Abu Dhabi, if he doesn't make him slower for those points, Verstappen isn't world champion.
No, and that's what you need.
That's what I think this year is going to be crucial, is if Sergio can't find that pace, especially as he's not Mr. Saturday at all, and that's a big thing going into next weekend, which is our preview now for the Red Bull Ring, which conveniently Red Bull's home track. We've got a sprint weekend.
Yes.
Do you like sprint weekends?
No.
Why is that, Jack?
No. For me, they need to find a way of adding more. It's not jeopardy, but it's just a point where if you crash into someone, it costs
your Grand Prix's done.
Your Grand Prix's done. It costs you. You got to change. Like, imagine Verstappen qualifies in, let's say, 3rd. What's the point in him going gung ho to try and win the sprint race? Because if he crashes his car and has to take a new power unit, he's ruined his.
The biggest thing about the sprint races is it takes away too much from the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
There's too much risk without. 8 points is not the reward you want. Either it has to dictate the grid for the Grand Prix, or it needs to be a reverse grid. Something has to be more interesting.
But even when I think it sets the grid, you hit a point where you just get people that qualified out of place going to their usual positions. It's like, oh no, Perez got knocked out in Q1, where it's fine because he's going to make it up a couple of places anyway. So if you have a really good qualifying in a Williams, you know that you're not going to be able to hold the teams you out qualified behind you. So.
Well, other formulas use reverse grids. What do you think of that?
I think at the minute that wouldn't be...
Like Formula E, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think it's safe enough. I think Verstappen starting at the back with the slower cars. I think turn 1, like imagine Spain turn 1.
I mean, putting a Red Bull anywhere near Haas's is a problem, really. But
yeah.
So
see Monaco.
Hopefully, we've got a 3-way dogfight going into the Austrian Grand Prix. And you don't like sprint races?
Track limits.
Yes, that was the next thing. A record last year for track limits in the hundreds.
It's in the thousands, was it not?
Do we tick over into lots of thousands this time around? What is the biggest problem with track limits at the Red Bull Ring?
I mean, I was going to say it's drive rarer, but when every driver is getting them, it's got to be something to do with the track.
It's fine when it's one driver consistently and going off tracks and getting track limits, getting their lap time wiped. But that's not the case. It's every driver. Not a single driver didn't get track limits. So what do you think needs to be done? Do we just discount track limits for this one?
Yeah, or I think it's something that in the future they look at the track. Do they have more gravel traps? Just put some reason in there, because like you say, it was every single driver's getting it. Do you want to put are you under or over 1500? sort of different instances. So I think it was, I can't remember, like 16, 17?
I thought it was around the 1500 mark.
Yeah.
But anywhere where you're talking, I mean, so we have 60 odd laps at Nürburgring because it's such a short track, and we'll get into how great that's going to be. But if you're getting that many cases, so you only got 10 turns at the Nürburgring, you only got 10 corners.
Yeah.
So you got to do 66 times 10 times 20. So you're not far off. So 600 times 20, to get that many track limits violations is huge, and you don't get it at many of the other Grand Prix. So I think it's an intrinsic problem with the Nürburgring as a whole.
Yeah.
So it's a popular track, but is that because it's a short track?
Yeah, and I also think it's for overtaking. Sort of the sector 1 is so interesting to watch, and then you get sector 2, which always fun. All I can think of is Albon and Hamilton.
Oh wow,
time.
Yeah.
We've had it with Perez, we've had it with Russell. There's always some sort of drama around that exit. I think it's such a nice track for overtaking, and it's such a smooth one to watch. And I mean, when you've got such a short track with such few amount of corners, the difference in driver ability makes all the difference, because there's not as many corners to make up time. So if you want to be quicker, then you have to nail every single corner. So.
Yeah. We talked about it earlier, but perfect laps are going to be huge for this. And given the sprint race, people staying out of trouble is going to be a big one first and foremost, because that will dictate a lot of your Grand Prix.
Yep.
Qualifying, I don't think has as big of an impact at the Red Bull Ring as it does at other tracks, because you can have a bad qualifying and still maybe get 3 or 4 overtakes. And given that there's quite a short track, there's no real sort of chance for the pit stop to have as big of an impact, because they're round so fast.
Yeah.
So where do you think the action points are going to be?
I think it's all in sector 1. Just coming into both corner, turn 1, turn 2, maybe even 3. Just where you get those long runs. You see how powerful DRS was this weekend.
Yeah.
If it's anywhere near the same, then I think you're going to see a lot of action there, and then people just sort of following each other around the last part, trying to stick as close into that final turn as possible, and then just fly up the hill. And
then it's a bit early, but predictions for qualifying. What's your starting, let's say, front 3 rows?
Front 3 rows. I think you'll see 1 Red Bull.
Yep.
Both McLarens. Both Mercs and a Ferrari.
I like that. I think Ferrari bring more to the Red Bull Ring. I'm seeing Lando on pole, Max second, probably Leclerc or Sainz 3-4, and then the Mercs. Sergio will be somewhere 7th or 8th, and I don't think it's going to be a weekend for Sainz. And then who's your top 5 going into race day? We're not going to talk about the sprint. I'm not going to inflict that on you.
I think it'll be Verstappen again, just because how powerful DRS is, how quick they've been in them instances. I think if there is a move to be done, he'll probably get it done at some point. And then you're looking at Norris. Hopefully Hamilton again, Piastri and Hamilton.
It would be nice for Piastri to be in the mix. I feel like he's gone off the boil a little bit, so hopefully. It would be nice for all the top team drivers to be involved as well. It's weird to see a Red Bull that far down the grid, but it's also weird to see certain drivers that far down. So with that in mind, we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Jack, you've been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.